what happens when the noise stops. The kind of noise that surrounds you every day. Cheering crowds, race whistles, strategy calls. The constant hum of doing, proving, and moving. So what do you think happens when all of that just stops? I thought I was prepared for anything. A hard competition, okay, I need to start training harder. A bad timing, I need to start running faster. I was the girl who thrived in motion. I played football, I swam middle distance, and I ran competitively. My days were packed with training schedules and team strategies, and my weekends were booked with tournaments and races. I lived for the adrenaline, the high of winning. But stillness was weakness, I told myself. You do not grow when you slow down. But I was wrong. Now let me take you into my world. For most of my athletic journey, I have not been a prodigy. I was not breaking records or standing on podiums. I was somewhere in between, an average athlete. But I had something that many did not. Coaches who believed in me. They pushed me to my limits, and they always told me that I could be more than I thought, and yet, "You can do it," from them hit a wall inside me that said, "But not you." Here's what no one tells you about being a mid-tier athlete. You know exactly where your flaws are, but not always how to break past them. I was not elite, but I was not a bench warmer either. I was just there, in between. Fast, but not the fastest. Strong, but inconsistent. Driven, yet easily derailed. I'd show up to training trying to prove something to myself, not just to the coaches or to my opponents, and when I failed, I pushed it away. Why? Because that's what we're taught in sport, right? Be tougher, be quicker, outwork that noise in your head. But here's the truth. You cannot outtrain self-doubt. You cannot outrun inner chaos forever, because eventually the match will end, the whistle will blow, your jersey will come off, and all that will be left is you. And for me, this truth hit like a storm. To realize that it was my own mental game that kept me from being the athlete I could have been. That wasn't a lack of skill or training, but it was my inability to believe in myself. It was so unsettling that I hid from it. And I kept choosing the noise over the quiet because the silence, it would make me face this loss.
Hey guys, today is the 31st of October. Happy Halloween. I'm excited for the summit day, but also a bit nervous. And yeah, looking forward to it.
So as you guys just saw, I signed up for a high altitude trek in the Himalayas. And I treated it just like any other endurance challenge. Another thing I just had to conquer. So there I stood at Goechila Trek in Sikkim, 15,100 feet of altitude. It's not a small altitude, but this trek was much more mentally challenging for me than physically. The trek leaders on this trek fascinated me the most. These were people who spent months in remote areas away from the world's chatter, and for them, the thing that they encountered the most, it's not danger, it is silence. The silence that makes their thoughts the loudest, the silence that makes them relive their experiences, their opinions, their things about the world again and again and again, because that's all they have with them. They were the people who did not choose the get a good life, a good job, and settle down mentality. They were doing something that they actually loved, and they were fearless enough to stick with that decision. On day 4 of the Goechila trek, I stood, my body tired. Not the kind of tired that rest can fix, but the kind of tired that will catch up to you when the noise will fade. So there I stood, trying to answer all of the questions that came rushing at me, the questions that the game never had time for. Why does it always feel like I'm constantly chasing a version of myself that does not exist? What happens if I stop this chasing, and who am I without this sport? I stood there trying to fathom the answers to all of these questions, but honestly, I could get none. I wasn't able to think about why these questions were coming again and again and again, and does that make my worth go down as an athlete, as a sports player? That day, the mountain became my arena, but the opponent was not the terrain, it was me, myself. The hesitation of taking that one step ahead, the self-doubt, the loneliness, I had to face it head on. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I can stand here and tell you guys that I'm changed. I'm a different person. I took all of the experiences from my trek and I put it as a completely nice, perfect puzzle piece. But my nose would be as long as Pinocchio's then. I didn't come back fully healed. I just came back more intentional to try. You know, in general, in sports, we talk a lot about physical resilience. Hey, how fast can you sprint? How long can you last? How much can you lift? But do we often ask these questions? Can you sit with discomfort without running? Can you hold a loss without self-destruction? And can you be proud of yourself, even when you're benched? These are harder, but these are the repetitions that will always change you. Now, this transformation did not end when the trek did. I've now traveled over 5,000 kilometers across India just to reach these beautiful trails. And on those long, long road drives, I've seen another side of India. A raw, a beautiful, a complex India. In the region of Joshimath, Uttarakhand, I've had conversations with people whose lives are nothing like mine. In the plains of Darbhanga, Muzaffarnagar, Bihar, I've had meals that taste like home. In the Chamoli district, I've seen kids playing barefoot with joy I had not felt in years. And I've realized something else, that growth does not always happen in the summit moments. It happens in the small, quiet ones too. When you're looking out of your window on a misty morning in a mountain village. When you share silence with someone who does not speak your language. And when you're miles from your regular routine and you start seeing yourself through a different lens. Silence made me a better person, a better athlete, a better teammate. Undoubtedly so. But here's what I like to call the paradox. In today's world, silence is almost suspicious. If you're not constantly talking, you are not fun. You're boring, you're uninterested, maybe even unhappy. In public places, being alone is branded as loner territory, as if no one likes you. Why? Because we're taught that constant connection looks like constant chatter, constant communication. So answer this, dear audience. How is someone ever supposed to learn how to sit in silence when being in noise constantly is what is appreciated? See, in my journey, somewhere along the way, I started building these little logics. Ahana, to protect your peace, pull away. Ahana, to preserve your energy, create distance. And so I did. But I didn't realize that instead of creating boundaries, I had built up straight up walls. And isolation, it does not preserve energy, it drains it. It's a lonely place to be, especially when you've built it with your own two hands. So how do you come back from that? How do you go from shutting people out to letting them back in? My answer is to do that very slowly. At first, I didn't even know where to begin. I felt like every conversation was a test for me. I realized and I wondered if the people I still loved wanted me at all. But that's not the truth. They were just waiting for me to turn around. So I started small. I replied yes to an old plan with old friends. I sat at the dinner table with my parents, not because I wanted something from them, but because I missed the warmth of belonging. And word by word, moment by moment, I started rebuilding what I had lost. And let me tell you this, that real peace does not mean being separate from others. It means being authentic with them. Because peace will always hold through connection. And when you share it, it will always multiply. So here's my invitation to you. Take one walk this week. No phone, no music, no distractions. Just you. Not to perform, not to be, but just to be there. And when your brain wants to run, when you're feeling that discomfort, stay. Because if you never sit in silence, you will never ever hear yourself. If you never hear yourself, you will never ever know yourself. The road gave me a perspective. The mountains taught me solitude. And the sports gave me resilience. But the greatest lesson I've learned is this, that growth does not always come in a thunderous applause. Sometimes it will come in a whisper, and you will only hear it when the noise finally stops. Thank you.